It's getting late. I'm going to talk in English, so please keep with me. I've heard that Mr. Ferra, because I don't understand Portuguese, but I just look at the gestures of the speakers. And I think I was quite, I do agree with with Carlos. Sorry, I just remember your Christian name. Mm-hmm. And as far as Mr. Ferra is concerned, I've heard he cited Paul Krugman. Yes. And I would like to cite Paul Krugman too. And just into a book he wrote last year in May called "And This Depression Now." He's an economist, of course, and you know him. He's in favor of, he's a Keynesian. He's in favor of state support in order to initiate growth and mainly to sustain it, not to stop the support before it is really strong. And he used the word depression and not the word usually economists now use, which is great recession for the crisis we are living. And the reason why he used depression is because the level of unemployment in advanced economies, and especially in the Eurozone, is very much comparable to the level of unemployment in a depression. So I think we shouldn't forget that economy is also human beings, and it is daily work. And for Coface, our job is just to anticipate in the short term the credit risk of companies. And we will see that even if some economic policies are improving the situation of multinational companies like in Japan, it's another story when SMEs are concerned. So I'd like to start with this chart. It's not that complicated. You see in green, is it in green? Yes. It's in blue here. So you see in green the evolution of world growth. And on the right-hand side here, you see our forecast for 2013, 2.7%, which is exactly the same progression as last year. There are three things we can see in this chart. If you look at the blue line, that's the evolution of Coface Payment Incident Index. And when growth slows down, or when it slumps like in 2009, our payment incident increased dramatically, as you can see, for 2007. The second thing you can see, in the red rectangle, we have put the main financial crisis we have experienced since the first oil shock. And since the second oil shock, you can see that expansion years between two financial crises are reducing. It is 7 years, 5 years, 3 years. And now, we thought that 2010 could be the recovery, and of course we are just in the same crisis, changing from a private sector debt crisis to a sovereign debt crisis. That you know all. So it's slowing down, and our payment incidents are going up. And if we focus on the Eurozone, if we have put here in relation the level of the public debt, that's the left axis, and the GDP growth, that's the basis axis. And you see in the red circle that all the countries with a recession have got a high level of public debt. What does it mean? That, and I thought I understand rightly that austerity is not a solution for recovery. It's not a solution either for lowering the public debt, because less revenue means more borrowing from states. So debt has swallowed, and it's going to swallow again in 2013. Why? So we have nothing to expect from the public spending, of course. And for consumer, if you look on the left-hand side chart, we have put the net wealth of households in a few Eurozone countries. And the net wealth, that is assets less debt, you see that a lot of households in many countries have room to spend money. That's the case of Belgium, Italy, Netherlands, France, Germany, Portugal. They have a net wealth over 100% of GDP. Spain has got 65% net wealth. But they don't spend. And why don't they spend? And you have the answer on the right graph, because on the left axis, real wages are contracting, and on the bottom axis, you see that the youth employment rate are very high in the country where you have recession. So households don't untie their wallet, and we do not have to expect much from household consumption, maybe in Germany. Well, maybe we'll see that later. Now for exports, it has improved. It has improved in Spain, it has improved in Portugal, but the share of emerging country, and that's what you can see on the left graph, the share of emerging country in total export of the countries we have here is still very low, between 25 to 30%, and even for Germany, it is underneath 30%. So all would depend, of course, of the opening up or not of the emerging country. Why have export increase? You have the answer, and that's a very important graph on the right-hand side, because of the adjustment of the unit labor cost. You see that it started with Ireland, that the big trend coming up in blue, then followed by Spain and Portugal, and then by Greece. And the trend of all this adjustment in these countries are going in the same way, whereas in Italy and in France, the adjustment of labor cost have not started yet. I have here the cost, the hourly wage in different countries of the Eurozone. If you take Germany, it is nearly 35 euro. If you take France, it's the highest. It's more than 36. Italy is 26. Spain is 22.5. And Portugal is 10.5. So the adjustment in Portugal has been very dramatic. But unfortunately, of course, emerging countries are a light in the tunnel, but they tend now to implement protectionist measures in order to protect their own local industry. So there are opportunities, but it can be quite difficult. Now, in this macroeconomic deterioration, business are unequally resilient. Here on the right side, you have the profits to GDP. And on the left side, you have the self-financing, which is in red, in green, and the level of debt to GDP, which is in blue. Yes, it's not that I don't have the same colors. So you have three groups of country. If you take the bottom line, United Kingdom, we added the United Kingdom and United States in this graph. United Kingdom and Spain, they have a high level of profit thanks to to lower salaries. They have also a high level of self-financing thanks to this high profit and the cash they are piling up. But this figure about self-financing is a sort of fancy because, of course, the companies in the United Kingdom and in Spain are using their cash not to hire, not to invest, but to restructure their debt and to deleverage. So the debt has declined, but it remains quite high. As you can see for Spain, it's nearly 130% of GDP. As for the second group of country in the middle, excuse me, you have France, Portugal, Italy. The business profits are very moderate, and the self-financing moderate as well, which means the firms in these countries are very vulnerable to the evolution of bank credit, and you have, that's better news, you have a low level of debt. For the third group of countries that's on the top, well, they all have good profit, good self-financing, not a high level of debt. So that means that in France, in Portugal, in Italy, in United Kingdom, and in Spain, we are going to have still credit risk on companies. And when you look for Europe at the evolution of the risk regarding sectors, the highest risk being on the bottom and the moderate risk at the top. There are some sectors who are hit, who suffered directly from the deceleration of the slump in consumption. That's retail, agro-food, and construction. And that's actually where Coface registers its highest level of payment incidents. And you have also sectors who suffer indirectly. If you take construction and automotive, which is in the orange block, upstream you have steel, and steel is, of course, in difficulties at the moment. But the crisis is not the only explanation for some actors going bankrupt in some sectors, because actually the crisis reveals some vulnerabilities. If you take retail, for example, in France, we had Virgin, who went bankrupt. In Great Britain, H&V, because these two specialized retailers didn't take the opportunity of the technological revolution, and they just miss the e-commerce. So with the crisis, they went bankrupt. You have also still in the north of Italy, a multitude of small actors. They didn't take the opportunity of expansion years to merge and to be stronger SMEs. So now we have really a credit risk on this population of companies in the north of Italy and still. Now, if we look at different countries from the insolvency point of view, and that will give us an idea of how strong companies are. Here you have a comparison between France and Germany for the insolvency rate, which means the number of insolvency compared to the number of actors in the two countries. In 2002, that's nearly in the middle, they were quite equal. The ratio was equal. That was just before Schröder implemented the arts measure concerning the unit labor cost. Then this ratio diminished very progressively just to be just twice less than in France. Of course, we know that German companies are big companies. We know that they are solid financially. They have steady external financing. But, and also they are connected to, of course, exports. When exports is right, it's okay for German companies. Exports after the slump of 2009 just increased by actually 9% per year. So, of course, it was a good thing for German exports. And that's one of the reasons explaining as well the decrease in insolvency ratio. But being big companies, when they go bankrupt, and that's what you see on the right-hand side, we have put a few big bankruptcy in Germany last year. Just the Schlecker Group, a retailer, it has a turnover of 6 billion euro. So, of course, that cost, when there is an insolvency in Germany, it costs a lot of money to suppliers and sometimes to credit insurers as well. As France is concerned, you see the evolution of the number, which is the lower line, the black one. It's rather steady. Of course, it's above the pre-crisis level. But the new thing for France is that since 2011, we have a cost to suppliers which is much higher, because after the SMEs who went bankrupt in the first part of the crisis, we had intermediary companies who went bankrupt. Of course, it costed more money to suppliers, and it costed more loss of a related job. Why? Because in France, consumption is very much related to insolvency to consumption. That's what you see on the right-hand side. When the consumption increases, insolvency decreases, and vice versa. And we are forecasting a contraction of household consumption this year in France. France is a client of Portuguese exporters. We are forecasting this contraction. That's the first time for at least 30 years. I think we had the contraction under the Mitterrand mandate when he reversed from a very expansive economy to a very restrictive one. And so insolvency should increase by at least 2% to be around 62,000 bankruptcy at the end of 2013. Now, that's another difficult year for Italy, Spain, and Portugal. On the left-hand side, the evolution of bankruptcy. Spain is in blue, Italy in green, and Portugal in orange. The level is again above the pre-crisis level. And for Italy, for example, it's 2 times more. For Spain, it is 7 times more. 5 times more, and for Portugal, 7 times more. We have already seen that in Spain, companies are caught in a debt trap, so they just restructure their debt. In Portugal, they depend a lot on credit, and you see on the right-hand side the evolution of credit, and I know Carlos talk about the evolution of credit too. So it is very much contracting. There are some good news, especially in Spain, I would say, because the foreign direct investment is coming back to Spain, and there are agreements under discussion with Germany in order to sustain SMEs in Spain with a public bank, a German public bank guarantee, in order to inject credit into the real economy, because that's what is really déréglé, doesn't work. All the money the banks receive from the ECB are not going into the real economy. So there is an agreement between Germany and Spain. So you see that Germany is trying to help the southern of Europe, but it's also its interest because its exports are slowing down. And as you have seen, they export to emerging countries, but not much more than other European countries. Now, the United States, yes, it's a light in the tunnel. You see on the left-hand side what are the positive contribution of growth in the United States. It's investment, and in investment you have the housing, which is starting because the demography is there. People need houses, and building permits are going up. That's true, but employment in construction is not increasing, and even if house prices are going up, and that's a good piece of news for households and for their wealth, it is not it's not accelerating very much, and nobody wants the prices of houses in the United States to go up to where they were in 2008, because that would mean we would be again in a bubble. One has to be very careful with the United States. We forecast 1.5% growth, which is rather conservative compared with the other forecasters. We have included in that the resolution of just a part of the spending sequester. You know, this automatic public spending cuts, which actually are at work since the 1st of March, but the sequester has not been solved yet. But when you speak, of course, of the United States, you speak mostly about household consumption, because it is 70% of the GDP. And what you can observe since the beginning of the crisis, at the moment the household has just built up their saving again, up to 6% from 2% before the crisis. The consumption has gone up when the saving was going down, and down when the saving was going up, and so on and so on. And in December last year, the saving went up to 6 from 3 because of the payment of the bonuses before the starting of 2014, because in 2014 taxes will be higher on bonuses. So all the bonuses has been paid in advance, and now, after 6% saving, the saving is back to 2.7%. So probably at one stage, households will ask credit and mortgage credit and so on in a more dynamic way. But for the time being, it's going up and down like that. And I think that in the second quarter, household spending should be more moderate than in the first quarter, because they will start feeling the pressure of the 2% payroll they have to pay since the beginning of the year. And there you see on the right-hand side the graphic showing that actually household disposable income has gone up by the end of the year because of the bonuses, and it's going down a little bit at the beginning of the year. For the public spending, nothing is to expect as a stimulus, so it's more the expansionary monetary policy which help the recovery. We talked about companies. You remember the profit, the self-financing, and so on. Of course, it's an average, and the average, you have big companies. And here you have, for the United States and Japan, you have the evolution of the SMEs confidence. You see it's very volatile, and it's on a decreasing trend. The news from Japan is very good, but just the SMEs in Japan usually depend upon one client, a multinational. Before the crisis, they were not very profitable. So with the depreciation of the yen, which is of course an advantage for big companies when they have their benefits back, of course they turn from losses to gains. But with the depreciation of the yen, these SMEs, which are not exporters, are going to feel the grip of import prices increase with the energy, because as you know, nuclear plants are not working, just 4 of them are working, so they import a lot of energy. Just to remind you what is the assessment of country risk at Coface. I just drink a little drop. Too rapidly. Country risk assessment assesses the average payment incident by companies in a given country, but it is important to remember that it is in the framework of their short-term transaction, which means 6-month credit. So when you want to sell products to a company, just go to our site to check our assessment and our rating. The evaluation is on 7 grades. It incorporates as well a business climate assessment, and that was going to be very important for emerging countries to know what is our evaluation of the business climate assessment. And last year, in March, we downgraded Belgium, France, and Netherlands because of a sluggish growth, because of a rise in payment incidents, and a rise in insolvencies. And we have downgraded Spain in B at the beginning of the year for the reason we already talked about. And Portugal is in B since last year for the reason we talked about. And also, of course, the payment incident index, which play a great role in our assessments. Okay, I have tried to be quick. And there you have our Coface site address in order to check our assessment and evaluation on 155 countries, or 58 now. Thank you very much.